Welcome to Illuminate Universe's podcast, The Cast. Get it? Yes, we have a cast of celebrity professionals and entrepreneurs on this show. My name is Alina, and I'm the founder of Illuminate Universe, where we mentor job seekers and help employers to fast track their business goals. For this episode in particular, I have invited Jensen Liu, who is the Chief Operating Officer at HomeOptions. HomeOptions pays owners to be their future real estate broker. Jensen and his team raised over $9 million USD in seed funding and are thriving in the tech startup sphere. Jensen will share today about the importance of developing key skills and attributes that will help you be prepared and thrive in the future of work. We start off from his journey as a business student at Western University in Canada to where he is today. Before further ado, please welcome my friend Jensen onto the show. So diving into our first question, Jensen, how did your post-secondary experience lead you to where you are today? Would you say that you took a unique path into the world of entrepreneurship?
So I would say the biggest impact perhaps is the experience of learning structural thinking in university. So if you think about, I went to Ivy Business School. So essentially what they taught there is mostly case method. And before that, I studied economics. And so primarily you learn about different frameworks to understand in the economy. And so a lot of the detailed knowledge that I learned there was not particularly useful in the everyday life or in the business world. But one important thing I think I caught while I was there was that these classes taught us how to put the world into a structured way, and for you to approach it in a structured way and analyze it. It's not always the best structure. You have somewhere to begin. And often it helps you to solve many problems and allow you to approach problem solving in a very guided and disciplined way. And so I would say university certainly is a worthy experience. The biggest thing that impacts me is the learning of the structural thinking method, as well as really seeing this particular competition out there that kind of inspire you to perform and work harder.
That's interesting. You mentioned a lot about structural thinking. And my question for you is a little bit different because entrepreneurship sometimes involves a lot of creativity and making decisions on the go. And that is the exact opposite of structural thinking. So what is your take on that? And how do you balance the structural thinking side and also the creative process?
Well, I think the creative process itself requires structure, right? And so you can create idea very easily, ideas everywhere. Execution is really the key. And even just the idea creation itself, right? You can think about idea that you want to start a business with, but then immediately the next step is really looking at your idea from a structural perspective to look at whether this idea has a chance of succeeding. And so you can look at it in terms of the market competition, whether really there's a real demand, how big is the market, and then suddenly it's all analysis and structure to help you understand whether this has a good opportunity to succeed. And once you have the idea, the next step is really execution. And so execution really, if you look at all the successful company, they're required to be very similar step to reaching the next level. You need to hire a team. That is a structural process. You need to build your finance. You need to go raise money. You need to build up operational procedure to really scale, right? And these are all structured.
How did you go from an Ivy, a Western Ontario Ivy HBA student, to where you are today? What were the key steps that you took?
So for me, I would say it's relatively non-traditional. So I think a lot of people who left Ivy went into either traditional finance, essentially investment banking, merchant banking, corporate banking, or into the consulting world. I have always been interested in entrepreneurship. So right after graduation, I went to this accelerator in the Bay Area called Plug and Play.
Did you ever expect or imagine yourself to be where you are today? Have you ever thought of all of this happening? Was it expected, planned, or was it more so unexpected and unplanned?
It's expected in this sense that that's part of the dream, right? And so you want to go somewhere, you must have a goal. But it's also unexpected in the sense that you don't know when and where you can get it. but it's just the direction is there, right?
So just to confirm that I'm hearing this right, you've always had somewhat of a plan, but it's just the specific steps. Sometimes that involves some spontaneous decisions, or would you say that you literally kind of A, B, C, D, and you follow through exactly that?
Well, I think from a larger perspective, right, there are somewhat of a plan. So you go to a place where you can learn rapidly and gather resources that can help you, right? And so where is that place? It's hard to say. This could be in a consulting firm, this could be in an investment bank, it could be at accelerator, or it could be at VC, right? But it doesn't really matter where it is. It's a place where you do get that is their starting point. It's a good starting point where you can learn a lot very rapidly. And this is the specific place, I don't know, but the rough location or it's a characteristic of the location, I do know.
This is so funny because Jensen, we've known each other for such a long time, ever since high school. And today, I think I've come to the new and discovered assumption that Jensen is a planner. Jensen needs a plan. And so my next question for you is an interesting one. Do you believe that in life and also in important career moves that we make, there always needs to be a plan?
Well, I think in general, there should be some of the plan to guide the general direction, right? But we cannot always expect the plan can be executed to the point of what we plan, right? And so the rest is adaptation. But if you don't have any plan, then it's a little more uncertain. And I think the uncertainty, a lot of it's you're lowering of efficiency, because if you know the general direction you want to go, but you don't spend any time investing on your way there, then it's very hard to get there.
This is so cool. I'm hearing a completely different perspective from the way I think. I absolutely believe that sometimes in life you don't need a plan. And the best decisions sometimes are made when you don't have a plan, when you're just making it in the moment. And I think that's a part of life. And so from the way I've always approached my business, I started Illuminate, and I never planned it for it to be what it is today. But it always feels like I've made changes and adjustments to the business move while I was on the go, getting intuitive feedback and implementing and testing it out. If that doesn't work, I'm changing the whole plan. If that doesn't work, I'm changing the next step, or I might take a step back. So it's really enlightening to hear your structured thinking, because I am completely different in that way. And I think this has a lot to do with the role that you're in as a chief operating officer. So Jensen, we know that you are an incredibly successful COO. What are the main traits and the skills someone aspiring to enter this role or this specific industry should develop?
Well, I think I'm pretty far from being incredibly successful, given that it's a startup that I am working at. But I would say your COO role certainly come from different background. I would say startup is a much more flexible background in terms of which background you can come from. And in larger company, it also depends. This role, you can come from finance, can come from operations, and even sales. And so there's definitely no standard path, but I would say operation, a lot of it is process, a lot of it is structure. And so certainly if you do want to enter or taking the COO position, I would certainly recommend a good understanding of the general business and management knowledge to start with.
So if you were to list out the top 3 skills that someone should possess in a COO role, what would they be?
Number 1 is leadership, right? You are, and they're really depending on the organization, COO roles are quite different, from Meta to a small startup. But certainly leadership skill is very important, as you are at the end of the day, not just managing business, but managing people. And I would say the skill sets wise, aside from leadership, really depending on the stage of the company. So if you're in a really early stage startup, you should be very flexible, adapting very quickly. But when you're in a fast scaling company, then your skill set might be you want to be able to build process, build rules. And once you're in a larger company, that changes also rapidly. But I wouldn't know because I was never there.
And what's the third one?
If to say one more, right? I think really many skills there to have. And I would say leadership really encompasses a lot of things there. For example, I think as a COO, you likely are managing a lot of senior executive, and you're not really doing a lot of day-to-day things, but really coordinating work across organization, right? So I think having the ability to manage very smart people as well as the empathy to do the work, I think is very important.
I love that. A couple years ago, a friend told me that you should always hire people who are smart, who are more capable than you. And at first, when I heard that, I was very shocked. But now, seeing the way how Illuminate has grown, just from my personal perspective, I can absolutely say that I think that was the best advice that I've ever been given. And I think it reflects a lot of what you just said as well, is being able to work emotionally, being able to showcase emotional intelligence and work with people who are sometimes perhaps even more capable than ourselves, and trying to bring their attributes to the best that they can be. So Jensen, given the interesting times we're in, what is one piece of advice you would offer to someone currently striving to attain their dream job?
Number one certainly is have the courage to dream. So if you have a dream, you should give it a try, no matter how unrealistic it is. And number two is, I think, have a plan of how to achieve it, right? If your dream job is being an accountant, but you don't study for the CPA, then it's hard to be an accountant if you're not a CPA, right? If your dream job is to be an entrepreneur one day, then you should get the skills to get ready for that. And then I think the third one is really adaptability. So be able to adapt to any situation and try to make the best out of it. Because at the end of the day, a lot of it's luck, but often you will get some. And in those situations, you should seize it.
Absolutely. Jensen, I think for people who are religious, they might call this entity God. And for others, they might call this entity universe. Whatever it is, whoever it is, I absolutely believe we get back as much as we give out. And so I think when we are being positive, like you said, dare to have a dream and have the courage to have a dream, we are giving out so much positive energy with our actions followed. It is oftentimes also positive results. And so I love that piece that you just shared, is being able to have the courage to dream and have a plan to follow through with that dream and adapt. Love that beautiful process there. And so my last question for you, Jensen, is what are some essential skills that you think individuals should develop in order to thrive in their work? Or what do you tell yourself when you need to? We all know that a lot of people don't like change, yet change is the only constant in today's world. So what is the narrative that you tell yourself?
Well, the narrative is really that you have to tweak your framework of understanding this world or particular situation, right? And taking the new information and come out with a different calculation of what you should approach this new situation with, and try to make the best out of that situation, leveraging your new framework with a new input.
I think with a lot of this adaptability piece that we talked about, one crucial component is what you mentioned earlier, courage. How would you recommend someone to develop courage? What does courage mean to you?
I would say really one you can say is the courage, and perhaps the other is the illusion. Or I would say, I think the bigger part is that to have the environment, for example, if your environment is in a place where the most successful person is your local landlord or someone that runs a 30-person business, then it's difficult to dream about becoming a company CEO that runs a multi-billion-dollar company. But if you're in an environment where you see people like that succeeding all around you, then maybe it's easier to have that courage. And sometimes you can call that the illusion of the possibility that you can be the next Steve Jobs in the Bay Area.
It's interesting you use the word illusion. To me, it sounds like it's a combination of influence and the exchange of knowledge. There is a quote that says, you are the average of the 5 closest people that you surround yourself with. And I think that is so true. Because in order for us to really get to where we want to be or who we want to be, we should be talking to people who's actually done it. People who's actually been to or been where we are today and have successfully gotten to where we want to be. So I absolutely love that piece of advice. And Jensen, thank you so much for coming onto our podcast. It is such a pleasure to have you here.